Hello everyone. Today we are going to discuss about some other amendments related to input tax credit. So the first amendment which we are going to look at today is the insertion of new rule 86A. Now what does rule 86A says is it gives right to put some restriction on utilization of ITC to the commissioner or to proper officers. So this particular rule, it empowers the commissioner to impose certain restrictions on the utilization of input tax credit which is there in the electronic credit ledger, provided that he has got reasons to believe that the particular input tax credit has been fraudulently availed by a particular person, or he is not eligible to that particular credit which is appearing in his electronic credit ledger. So please understand that this rule is giving power only to the proper officers or the commissioner to put certain restrictions on utilization of ITC. This cannot be done by any other person, only a proper officer or a commissioner, and only in a situation where he believes that the input tax credit has been fraudulently availed by a particular person, or the person in whose electronic credit ledger the input tax credit is appearing, he is not eligible to take the credit of that. In those situations, the commissioner or the officer may impose these restrictions. Now let's have a look at in what situations these restrictions can be imposed. So basically there are three situations wherein these restrictions can be imposed. Let us look at what is the first situation in which these restrictions may be imposed. So the first situation is wherein, as we all know, that input tax credit can be availed only on the basis of the invoices and documents. The very essential requirement for the purpose of availment of ITC is that the person has to be in possession of tax invoices or any other document which are approved he is eligible for that particular input tax credit. Now, in a situation, say ITC has been availed on basis of certain invoices, but that invoice has been issued by a supplier who is not in existence at all. मतलब कोई फेक सप्लायर का इन्वॉइस रेडी करके एक फेक इन्वॉइस अपलोड कर दिया, या फिर देयर इज अ नॉन एग्जिस्टेंट सप्लायर, और इट कुड बी अ पर्सन who is not conducting any business from his registered place of business. As you all know, whenever we take GST registration, you will have to give the details of the place wherein you are carrying on your business. In a situation, say a person is not carrying on his business from the registered place of business and you still have an invoice issued by that particular person, मतलब जो registered place of business है वहाँ से वो बंदा काम कर नहीं रहा है, he is not carrying on, he is not conducting any business, but you still have an invoice which has been issued, then in that situation the commissioner may put some restriction that you cannot avail ITC or you cannot utilize ITC on the basis of this particular invoice, because when there's no business conduction which is happening, then how did this person raise an invoice on you? So this is the first situation. Second situation could be wherein you have an invoice but there's no receipt of good, or there's no receipt of service, or there's no receipt of goods or service, both. So this could be a situation जहाँ पे सिर्फ एक invoice raise हो गया है but there is no actual receipt of good, or there is no actual supply of service which is happening. Then in that situation as well, the commissioner may impose certain restrictions on utilization of ITC. And the next situation is wherein the tax on a particular invoice has not been paid to the government. So please understand that ITC can be utilized, but there's also this particular thing that tax has to be paid to the government. In a situation, say there's non-payment of tax to the government, then in that situation also the officers, they may restrict you from utilization of ITC. Now let's look at the other two situations wherein there's a restriction on utilization of ITC. So the second situation is wherein a registered person, he is availing ITC, who's availing ITC has been found non-existent. पहले वाले situation में क्या देखा था? In the first situation we had seen that there's a person who is in possession of invoice, but this invoice has been issued by a non-existent supplier. Now here we are talking from the registered person's point of view who is availing ITC, that is the recipient. So in this particular situation, say a person is availing ITC but he is not existent, or rather he is not conducting any business from his registered place of business. अब भैया जब आप बिजनेस कंडक्ट ही नहीं कर रहे हो तो फिर आपको आईटीसी किस बात का मिले? व्हेन यू आर नॉट कंडक्टिंग एनी बिजनेस, व्हेन यू आर नॉट कैरिंग ऑन एनी बिजनेस ऑपरेशन, then but obvious the government would not want to give you any credit as well. So in a situation a person who's availing ITC has been found non-existent, or he is not conducting any business from his registered place of business, in that situation as well this particular restriction may be imposed. And the last situation wherein this restriction may be imposed is in a situation where a registered person is claiming ITC and he does not have any valid document, he does not have the tax invoice, he does not possess any valid document which are a proof that he is eligible to avail those ITC. So these are the three situations wherein the restriction may be imposed by the commissioner or any proper officer. What are the three situations? The three situations are wherein a person has documents or invoices, but these are from a non-existent supplier, or the tax has not been paid on those invoices. And the second situation is wherein the registered person who's availing ITC, he himself is not existent, or he's not carrying on business from any registered place of business. And third situation is wherein the person who is claiming input tax credit, he does not have any tax invoice, or he does not possess any valid documents, and because there is no possession of valid documents, he is not eligible to claim ITC. In that situation, the commissioner or the officer, they may impose restrictions on utilization of ITC. And in a situation this type of restriction is imposed, then this restriction can be imposed for a period of up to 1 year from the date when the restriction has been imposed. Say restriction are being imposed on say 10th of April 2020. So these restrictions would go on until 1 year. And as you all know, what is the restriction which is being imposed? The ITC is already there in your electronic credit ledger. You have already availed the ITC, but the restriction is being imposed on utilization of ITC. And when do we say that ITC has been utilized? We say ITC has been utilized when we are using it for reduction in the output tax liability, or rather when at the time of payment we are making this adjustment of ITC and then paying the residual amount from the total output tax liability. So the ITC which has been availed, the restrictions are imposed by not allowing the person to use that particular input tax credit for the purpose of payment of any output tax liability. So this is one new insertion which has come up in the form of Rule 86A. Moving ahead to another and one very significant and most important amendment which has come up, and this is with respect to Rule 43. Before we go to Rule 43, let's just talk about how apportionment of credit, common credit happens. So as you all know, when we talk about input tax credit, it could be a situation wherein the services which you have availed or the goods which have been purchased, they are being used only for taxable supplies, or only for exempt supplies, or only for business purposes or non-business purposes, exclusively for these things. Or it could be a situation wherein this particular thing is being utilized commonly for taxable supplies as well as exempt supplies, or commonly for business purposes and non-business purposes. And as we have all seen earlier, that if a particular thing is being used for exempt supply, then we cannot avail the credit on those particular we cannot avail the input tax credit of those particular things on which are being used only exclusively for the purpose of exempt supplies or exclusively for non-business purposes. But there could be a situation wherein the credit is commonly being used. Then in that situation, the common credit has to be apportioned between taxable supplies, exempt supplies, business purposes and non-business purposes. So in a normal situation, many a times wherein a thing is used commonly for all the types of supplies which are happening or both business as well as non-business purposes. And there are different rules which talk about apportionment of credit. As you all know, there's rule 42 which talks about general apportionment of credit, and there's rule 43 which talks about apportionment of common credit with respect to capital goods. Now, where is the change? The change has come up in rule 43 which talks about apportionment of common credit with respect to the capital goods. We will first look at what was the scenario before amendment, then we will have a look at what is the scenario after the change has come in the rule, after the amendment has come in the rule. So we'll first look at the amendment scenario, and then we'll look at the post-amendment scenario, and then we'll look at example, so that it becomes very clear that how is the amendment impacting rule 43 and how will that impact the way you are going to make calculation for your examination purposes. So for the pre-amendment scenario, or what was the scenario before amendment, so in case there was a capital good which was exclusively being used for exempt supply, then there was no question of ITC on that particular thing, because when you are using exclusively for exempt supply, there wouldn't be any tax payable or there wouldn't be any tax liability which is arising, and when you are not liable to pay any tax, the government would obviously not want to give you any credit for when you are making exempt supplies. So in case a capital good is being used exclusively for exempt supplies, the credit is not available. Second situation could be wherein the capital good is being used exclusively for non-business purposes. So in this situation, when a particular capital good is being used exclusively for non-business purposes, in this situation as well, the credit cannot be taken, because this particular thing is not being utilized for the business purpose, it is being utilized for non-business purpose. So when a particular thing is being utilized not for business purpose, then but obvious you cannot avail the credit on that particular capital good which is being taken. And then it could be a situation wherein the capital good is such that where the ITC is blocked. So section 17 subsection 5 talks about block credits, and if this particular thing falls under the criteria which wherein the credit has been blocked, so as we all know that in a situation when the credit has been blocked, we are not eligible to take, or we are not eligible to avail the ITC in that particular situation. So in case of block credits as well, the credit cannot be taken. So the first three situations are very simple and very clear. When a capital good is being used exclusively for exempt supplies, no credit available. Exclusively for non-business purposes, no credit available. When the ITC is blocked, then even in that situation the credit cannot be taken. Now, in a situation when the capital good is being used exclusively for taxable supplies, and these taxable supplies are including zero rated supplies. So when a capital good is being exclusively used for taxable supplies, then you will get full credit, that is 100% credit. Now say for example the ITC which is coming around on the purchase of capital good is say 1,20,000. So in case you are using it exclusively for exempt supplies, there's no credit which will appear, zero. In case it is for non-business purpose exclusively, then again no credit available, zero. In case the ITC is blocked, then you will again not be eligible to take any credit, so again zero will appear. But in a situation wherein your capital good is being used exclusively for taxable supply, मतलब आप सिर्फ taxable supplies कर रहे हो अपने capital good से, you're using that capital good only for the purpose of making taxable supplies, then in that situation you were eligible to take full 100% credit. तो मतलब 1,20,000 the total amount will go to your electronic credit ledger. Now these four were very simple and very straightforward situations जहाँ पे we know that this particular good is being exclusively used for one particular purpose, and hence because of which we can differentiate whether we have to take the credit or whether we are eligible to avail the credit or not. But there could be a situation wherein the capital good is being used commonly for business purposes as well as non-business purposes, and taxable supplies as well as exempt supplies. So in this situation, what will be the scenario, or how would the calculation be done? So what was the scenario pre-amendment? Pre-amendment, again, what would we do if there was some common credit? Then we would initially take the full 100% credit. In our example, 1,20,000. So initially we would take the total amount of 1,20,000 in our electronic credit ledger. But are we eligible to avail the total 1,20,000? The answer to this is no, because this particular capital good is being used for both business as well as non-business purposes and taxable as well as exempt supplies. So as this is a common credit, we cannot avail the whole 1,20,000. But we've already credited the 100% amount in the electronic credit ledger. The whole 1,20,000 is appearing in our electronic credit ledger. So now what will we do? Because we are not eligible to claim the full credit, we will add the ineligible amount to our output tax liability. Now here there's one point wherein most of the people get confused and they ask, ma'am, why adding to the output tax liability? We can directly reverse it from our electronic credit ledger, नहीं तो हमारा output tax liability बढ़ जाएगा. So please understand the rule 43, the words which have been written in the rule 43, they say that the ineligible amount out of the common credit has to be added to the output tax liability. But what actually happens is, it is nothing but the amount is reduced from the electronic credit ledger. Please understand, there is no further addition in the output tax liability. There's only an amount which is reversed. There's only a reversal which is happening. It is not an actual addition, but because the rule uses the word added to the output tax liability, you also have to use the word output tax liability, because you cannot change the language of law. So please understand, adding to the output tax liability is not literally adding it to the output tax liability. It is nothing but reducing the amount from the electronic credit ledger, or reversal of that particular amount, ineligible credit from the electronic credit ledger. So here one question which comes up now is, how will we reverse the amount, or how will we calculate the amount which we are not eligible to claim? So if you all remember, there's an assumption that the useful life of the capital, or the useful life of the capital good, will be taken as 5 years. So the useful life of the capital good is 5 years, wherein if we calculate it as per the number of months, it comes to 60 months. So what you have to do is, the common credit has to be divided by 60. Then we get what will be the common credit per month. Why do you have to find common credit per month? Because please understand, we have to file GST returns, our monthly returns. So when GST returns are monthly returns, every month you will have to add something to your output tax liability, or rather in simple terms, every month there has to be some reversal from the electronic credit ledger. So that is the reason why we'll have to calculate what is the common credit per month. Now we'll have to now ascertain what is the credit which is attributable to exempt supplies and what is the credit which is attributable to non-business purpose. But please understand, rule 43 does not talk about apportionment between business and non-business purposes, because it is not very easy to identify how the apportionment has to be done for business purpose and non-business purpose. Yes, there is an apportionment rule for exempt supplies and taxable supplies, but like in rule 42, there is a particular percentage which has been given to calculate the non-business apportionment of credit. There is no such percentage which is being given in rule 43, and hence for that purpose, please understand, when we talk about capital good which is being commonly used for business purposes and non-business purposes, then again there would be full credit of that, because there's no apportionment rule which is being given, or rather there's no way wherein you can identify how much is being used for business purpose and how much is being used for non-business purpose. But yes, for taxable and exempt supply, we can definitely find out how much of credit has to be apportioned to the exempt supply. So first, what have we done? We have arrived at common credit. What is our common credit? Our common credit is, say, 1,20,000. 1,20,000 is our common credit. Now this has to be divided by 60, that is 60 months, the useful life. So the common credit per month comes to 2,000. 2,000 will be our common credit per month, and this has to be multiplied into the value of exempt supplies divided by the adjusted total turnover. So 2,000, that is the common credit per month, into value of exempt supplies divided by the adjusted total turnover will give us the amount which has to be added to the output tax liability, or will give us the amount of ineligible credit. So this is the manner in which we would calculate the ineligible credit, wherein this is how we apportion the common credit between taxable supplies and exempt supplies. Because we have to apportion them to exempt supplies, we will we will use the value of exempt supplies upon the adjusted total turnover and find out what is the credit which is ineligible. But this was a simple scenario, a normal situation. But there would be another situations wherein some capital good was previously used only for exempt supplies, but now it is being used for exempt as well as taxable supply. Or it could be a situation wherein some particular capital good was used only for taxable supply, but now it is being used for both taxable as well as exempt supply. So what was the scenario before amendment in a situation wherein there was a subsequent shift? We will first talk about subsequent shift from exempt supplies to taxable as well as exempt supplies. So now say there's a capital good which was previously being used only for exempt supplies, and now this capital good is being used for both taxable as well as exempt supplies. So in this situation, what would happen and how would we ascertain the amount of common credit? This is the pre-amendment scenario. So what we did previously, for example, there's a capital asset, the ITC on which is, say, 1,20,000. Let's keep it 1,20,000 for the purpose of ease of calculation. So there was this capital good which was only being used for the purpose of making exempt supplies. Only exempt supplies were being made by use of this capital good. Say this capital good was purchased in the month of April, and for 3 months, April, May and June, this capital good was used only for the purpose of making exempt supplies. But from the month of July, from 1st of July, there was a shift, and this capital good was now being used for both exempt as well as taxable supplies. So previously, for when the capital good was being used only for the purpose of making exempt supply, you were not eligible to claim any ITC on that. So there is no ITC which has been availed in the month of April, May or June. So the capital good was used for 1 quarter for the purpose of making exempt supplies. Now when from 1st of July this capital good is being used for common purpose, commonly for taxable as well as exempt supply, now there would be some portion of that credit which you are now eligible to claim. So the question comes is, how will you claim that ITC? So सबसे पहले what you have to do is, you have to first calculate the amount of ITC for the purpose for the month of July, and the amount will be calculating by depreciating the capital asset at the rate of 5% per quarter or part of the quarter till the time the capital good was exclusively used for exempt supplies. Why are we doing this? Why are we depreciating it? Because we have already utilized that capital good for 3 months, and for those 3 months we are not eligible to claim any input tax in that. And because of which we will have to subtract that portion, because you cannot take the total credit of 1,20,000 now and use the credit over the remaining useful life of the asset, because that would be wrong. So in this situation, we'll first have to depreciate. And how will we arrive at the depreciated value? The depreciation has to be calculated at the rate of 5% per quarter. So here in our example, we've used the machinery for 3 months, April, May and June, that is 1 quarter. So we'll have to subtract 5% from 1,20,000, because that is the total amount of credit. But because you have used the machinery for you've used the machinery already for 3 months and it was specifically used for exempt supplies, and now there's a shift, so we'll have to subtract 5% from 1,20,000 because it is only 1 quarter. Say if the machine was used for April, May, June and July, so this was 4 months. In this situation, how would we calculate, or how much percentage would have been depreciated? So the percentage which would have been depreciated if the machinery was used for 4 months, it would have been 10%. Now you would ask, why 10%? There is no completion of second quarter, but the rule says even if it has been used for part of the quarter, the machinery has to be depreciated for 5%, or rather the value amount from ITC has to be reduced by 5%. So please understand, even if you were using the machinery only for 1 month for exclusively exempt supplies, that is for the month of April, even in that situation 5% would have been reduced from the amount of input tax. So here in this situation, what will we do? 1,20,000 में से will deduct 5%, that will be 6,000. So the remaining amount, that is 1,14,000. This is the amount of common credit. So 1,20,000 में से we are deducting 5% for the quarter of April, May and June. That comes to 6,000. So when we subtract 6,000 from 1,20,000, we get 1,14,000, which is now our common credit. Now what was done previously, this 1,14,000 was now divided by 60. But please understand, the total useful life of the asset is 5 years, that is 60 months, but we have already used the asset for 3 months. But now when we are attributing it to the common credit, when we are shifting it from exempt to taxable as well as exempt, what we are doing is, after 3 months we are again dividing the common credit by 60. But if you understand, the remaining useful life of the asset is only 57 months and not 60 months. So here in this situation, there was a lacuna, there was a loophole wherein the government would also lose out on some revenue, because now when you are dividing it by 60, you would there would be a lesser amount of ineligible credit, which you will understand when we look at the example. So there was a loss to the government, and the attribution was same as we had done for the common credit previously. As we had seen, we would divide 1,14,000 by 60, we would get a common credit per month, and then multiplied by value of exempt supply divided by the adjusted total turnover will give us the amount which has to be reversed. So सबसे पहले क्या करना था, in the old scenario, deduct 5% per quarter, depending on for how many quarters or part thereof the capital good was used, and on the basis of that we'll arrive at an amount which has to be added to the common credit. The amount has to be added to the credit, that is the electronic credit ledger. It will be added to the ECL. Now this amount which comes up has to be divided by 60. When we divide it by 60, we get the common credit per month. When we get the common credit per month, this common credit per month has to be multiplied by value of exempt supply divided by the adjusted total turnover. We will get the amount which has to be reversed, or the amount which has to be added to the output tax liability. We'll get the amount of ineligible credit. But there was a discrepancy here. What was the discrepancy? We have already used the asset for 3 months, but when we are apportioning it for the common credit, when we are finding out the common credit, we were again dividing the common credit by 60, whereas the remaining useful life of the asset was only 57 months. So actually what should have been the thing was, it should have either been 1,14,000 divided by 57 months, that is the remaining useful life, or it could have been 1,20,000 divided by 60, because that is the useful life, and we would have calculated the reversals accordingly. But because of this particular thing, when you were calculating the common credit on the shift and you were dividing it by 60 months, but please understand, you couldn't take this particular credit for total 60 months. This has to be done only till the remaining useful life of the asset, which means this could have been done only till 57 more months. So there was this discrepancy, there was this loophole which was there, and because of which the government would get a lesser amount, or they would have to give an excess ITC to you. There was a loss of revenue which the government was incurring, and as a result of which the amendment has been brought in. So this was the first situation. Talking about the second situation, wherein there is a subsequent shift from taxable supply to exempt supply, exempt as well as taxable supply. Matlab pehle this was being used only for taxable supply, but now this particular thing is being used for both taxable as well as exempt supply. Now, because the machinery was being used only for or exclusively for taxable supplies earlier, so but obvious the total amount of 1,20,000 was already being taken as credit, was already availed as credit, because the particular capital good was being used exclusively for taxable supplies. Continuing the same example, April 2020 the machinery was purchased. From April to the month of June, the machinery was being utilized exclusively for taxable supplies. So you've already taken the full credit in the month of April 2020. 1,20,000 has already been availed because the machinery was used exclusively for taxable supplies. Now what would happen? In this situation, what has to be done in the month of July is basically you will again have to depreciate, you'll again have to find out the common credit attribution. So for those 3 months, यहाँ पे there will be no deduction in the amount. You are not going to add anything, you are not going to again credit anything to your electronic credit ledger, unlike which we did in the previous scenario, that is for exempt supply. The 1,14,000 which we arrived at here, we added it to common credit, we had credited it to the electronic credit ledger, but in this situation there wouldn't be any such thing which is happening, because we've already taken the full credit. It's just that there will be a difference in the calculation. So for the first 3 months, April, May, June, पूरा 1,20,000 का credit आपने April में ही ले लिया था. But what will you do in the month of July is basically again depreciation will happen. Depreciation for 5% per quarter will happen in this situation as well. So 1,14,000 will arrive, and 1,14,000 को from the month of July you will apportion between exempt supply and taxable supply, because those 6,000, the 6,000 here there wouldn't be any addition because the amount is already appearing in your electronic credit ledger, and the 6,000 will not be deducted or rather reversed, because you are eligible to claim the credit of that 6,000. There is no addition or there is no reduction from the electronic credit ledger which is actually happening because of the depreciation. It is just that from the month of July, when you would do the calculations, therein you would take 1,14,000 and apportion it between exempt supplies as well as taxable supplies on the basis of the adjusted total turnover. So this was the pre-amendment scenario. You will definitely understand it a bit more clearer when we look at the figures and the examples. Now let's look at what is the post-amendment scenario. So talking about the post-amendment scenario, there wouldn't be any change in the basic things. What are the basic things? If the capital good is being used exclusively for exempt supply, यहाँ पे भी credit नहीं मिलेगा. Exclusively for non-business purpose, no credit allowed. When the ITC is blocked, again no credit. If it is being used exclusively for taxable supply, then you are eligible for full credit of 100%. If you are commonly using it, so you will have to initially take the full credit, but then you'll have to add the ineligible amount to the output tax liability. And how are we going to calculate that? For the purpose of that, we are going to use the common credit, divide the common credit by 60, we get common credit per month, and that common credit per month has to be multiplied by the value of exempt supplies and divided by the adjusted total turnover, will get the amount of ineligible credit. Now when we get this amount of ineligible credit, again there is no change in capital good which is commonly used for business as well as non-business purpose. There's no particular percentage which has come up that इतना परसेंट आप नॉन बिजनेस पर्पसेस के लिए निकाल लो, ऐसा कोई चेंज नहीं आया है. But yes, there is a change when there is a subsequent shift in the capital good. There is a subsequent shift from exempt to taxable or taxable to exempt as well as taxable. So now let us look at how this subsequent shift will impact, or what is the shift which has come up. So in a situation wherein the capital good was previously used only for exempt supplies, and now it is being used commonly for taxable as well as exempt supplies, how are we going to calculate, or how are we going to attribute the common credit in this particular situation? So पहले क्या होता था, what we did earlier, which we have seen just a few minutes ago, what we did earlier was we would depreciate, we would find out the amount, and then we would add it to the output, add it to the electronic credit ledger, and then divide it by 60 and do this till the remaining useful life of the asset. But now अभी आपको क्या करना है? Let's continue with the same example of a capital good, 1,20,000 input tax, you purchased in the month of April, used up to June, used for 1 quarter exclusively for exempt supplies, and from 1st of July you are starting to use it for commonly for taxable as well as exempt supplies. So in this situation, what you have to do is you will have to take the full credit in your electronic credit ledger. What were we doing earlier? Earlier we were taking only the amount after reducing the 5% per quarter का depreciation amount. But यहाँ पे ऐसा नहीं होगा. यहाँ पे in the month of July what we will have to do is we will credit the total amount of 1,20,000 to the electronic credit ledger. We will calculate depreciation but obvious we are not eligible for that 6,000. We will calculate depreciation at the rate of 5% per quarter or part of the quarter for the period when the capital asset or capital good was used specifically for exempt supplies, and we will add that particular thing to the output tax liability. Please understand what is happening here. Previously what was happening, we would take the total input tax credit, deduct the amount of depreciation and add it to the electronic credit ledger. But now what is happening, we are taking the full credit in the electronic credit ledger. The total amount of 1,20,000 is being taken as credit in the electronic credit ledger. We are calculating the amount of 5% per quarter and we are adding it to the output tax liability. Pehle we were taking the net amount in the ECL, but now we are taking the full amount of credit in the electronic credit ledger, and the remaining amount, that is the, say you have used your capital good for 1 quarter or 2 quarters, so 5% per quarter pay, whatever depreciation arises, that amount has to be added to the output tax liability. Or it could be a reversal. Adding to the output tax liability is nothing but the reversal from the electronic credit ledger. So this amount of 6,000 will now be reversed or will now be added to the output tax liability. And then what are we going to do? The whole amount of credit, that is 1,20,000, will be divided by 60, and on the basis of that we will calculate how much is a portion to the value of exempt supplies, and this particular thing has to be done up to the remaining useful life of the asset. तो पहले का जो लकूना था, पहले का जो loophole था, that is overcome by this particular provision, because now we are taking the full credit, dividing it by the total useful life, and this particular thing is being done till the remaining useful life of, and how are we going to apportion it? We'll take the credit divided by 60, multiply it by the value of exempt supply divided by the adjusted total turnover, and this has to be done until the remaining useful life. So basically what are we going to do in the month of July now? 1,20,000 divided by 60, which is 2,000, into the value of exempt supplies by adjusted total turnover, and this will be done for how many months? Not 60 months, this has to be done up to 57 months, because that is the remaining useful life of the asset. So now whatever was the previous loss of revenue which was happening to the government, now this particular thing will not happen. And how will it not happen? You will understand it when we look at the examples. So now what do we have to do when there's a shift from exempt supply to taxable supply, as well as exempt supply? First, take the full credit, add the depreciation amount to the output tax liability, divide the full credit by 60, apportion it to the exempt supply, and this apportionment has to be done. This ineligible amount has to be calculated for the remaining useful life of the capital good. And what will be the scenario in case there's a shift from taxable to exempt supply? So यहाँ पे तो full credit has already been taken, so there's no requirement of adding anything to the output tax liability, because you have already taken the full credit of 1,20,000. So now simple है यहाँ पे, in case of shift from taxable to commonly used for taxable as well as exempt supply, it is very simple. Divide the value of credit by 60, multiply it with value of exempt supply, and divide it by the adjusted total turnover. There wouldn't be any additional amount which would be added to the output tax liability. So this is the change which has come. We will now look at two examples, one for shift from exempt to common supply and one for shift from taxable to common supply. Let's look at example 1. There's capital good Y which was purchased on 1st of April 2020, put a date of invoice is 1st of April 2020. It was used for exempt supplies until 30th of June 2020, and then it was used commonly for taxable as well as exempt supply, and the ITC on that capital good Y is 3 lakh rupees. There's capital good Z which is used for common purpose. The date of invoice is 1st of August 2020, and the ITC on capital good Z is 1,20,000. Now the turnover for the month of August, taxable is 20 lakh, exempt is 15 lakhs. You have to calculate the amount which has to be added to the output tax liability for the month of August. So now we'll first look at what was the scenario before amendment, and then we'll look at what is the scenario after the amendment has come. So before the amendment, the amount which will be credited to the electronic credit ledger with respect to capital good Y would be 3 lakh minus 5% of 3 lakh, that is 15,000. We have used this capital good Y for 1 quarter, so we'll reduce 5% of 3 lakh, that is 15,000, and 2,85,000 will be the amount which will be credited to the electronic credit ledger, and this amount will be credited to the electronic credit ledger in the month of July. And with respect to capital good Z, 1,20,000 will be credited to the electronic credit ledger. Now talking about what will be the common credit for the month of August 2020. So it will be 2,85,000 plus 1,20,000, that is 4,05,000 divided by 60. So for the month of August, the common credit which we have is 6,750. Now this common credit, that is 6,750, will have to be attributed to the exempt supplies. So we have already seen in the example, in the question, the value of exempt supplies is 15 lakhs, and the total turnover, the adjusted total turnover here would come to 35 lakhs. So the common credit which is attributable to exempt supplies will come up to 2,893. This is the rounded off amount. So the common credit which is attributable is 2893, and the amount which will be added to the output tax liability for the month of August will be 2893. And with respect to this 2,85,000, up to which month the addition has to be done to the output tax liability. So with respect to capital good Y, it has to be done till March 2025. Now why March 2025? Because the useful life of the asset is useful life of the capital good is 5 years, and this capital good, the invoice date is April 2020. So April 2020, say 5 years if you count, it comes to May 2025. So this addition to the output tax liability has to be done until March 2025. And with respect to capital good Z, that is 1,20,000 का जो credit है, the addition out of it to the output tax liability will be done until July 2025. So this was the pre-amendment scenario. This was how the things were being done before the amendment. Now let's look at the post-amendment scenario. What is the change which will come after the amendment? So like we've seen in the previous slide, that after the amendment, even if there's a shift from exempt supply to taxable as well as exempt supply, we will first take the full credit. So in the month of July, the whole amount of 3 lakh will be added to the electronic credit ledger. And for the capital good Z, again 1,20,000, because that is from beginning being used for common purposes. Now what is the common credit which is available? It is 3 lakh plus 1,20,000, 4,20,000 divided by 60, we get 7,000. So what is the common credit which is attributable to exempt supply? The common credit which is attributable to exempt supply is 7,000 into 15 lakh by 35 lakh, which comes to 3,000. So the amount which will be added to the output tax liability will be 3,000. For the month of August, it will be 3,000 only. But yes, I have written this 15,000. This 15,000 will be added to the output tax liability in the month of July itself. This will not be added in the month of August. But because we have in the example we are talking about the month of August, I have additionally written taken this particular thing because this is the thing which has to be done. Now 15,000 कैसे आएगा? 15,000 is the depreciation per quarter, or rather depreciation which is calculated by applying the rate of 5% per quarter on the amount of 3 lakh. So ये 15,000, this will be the amount which will be added to the output tax liability, and this 3,000 is the amount out of the common credit which will be apportioned to the output tax liability. And up to what time this has to be done? This has to be done for capital good Y up to March 2025, and for capital good Z, this has to be done until July 2025. So if you understand, you clearly see what is the difference here. Pehle the common credit was 6,750 and now the common credit is 7,000. Previously the reversal was 2,893 and now the reversal is 3,000. So if you understand, जो छोटा सा amount है, this is the loss of revenue to the government, because the less you reverse, the government will lose upon a lot more revenue because of this. So this is the major difference which has come up because of the amendment. I repeat again, previously what was being done, previously the net amount was being credited to the electronic credit ledger and the net amount was divided by 60, but the ineligible credit was reversed only up to the remaining useful life. So there was this discrepancy which was existing earlier, but now there is no such discrepancy, because now the full credit is first credited to the electronic credit ledger, full credit is taken, and the depreciation is added to the output tax liability, and the full amount is divided by 60 so that you get the common credit per month, and that amount is now apportioned to the exempt supplies. So this is the thing, and please understand, whatever is the day whatever is the time when you are shifting the use of capital asset from exempt to taxable as well as exempt, that doesn't matter. You are not going to calculate the remaining useful life from that particular day. The remaining useful life will be calculated only from the date of invoice. Please understand, the remaining useful life is not 60 once you put it to common use. ऐसा नहीं हो रहा है that you are purchasing a new asset and एक fresh asset खड़ा हो गया तो आप वापस से 60 months लो. The useful life is not 60. The useful life will be the useful life after deducting the time period for which that particular capital good was used for exclusively exempt supplies. So this is one example. Now let's look at what would be the scenario in case there's a shift from taxable to common purpose. So example 2 में again there's capital good Y which was used for taxable supplies until 30th June, and from 1st of July it was put to common use, and there's capital good Z which is again common use. It is there's no change, the figures and the dates, everything is same. It's just that now capital good Y was previously used only for taxable supplies, but now it is being used for taxable as well as exempt supply. And the turnover is also same. Taxable turnover is 20 lakhs, exempt turnover is 15 lakhs. We have to calculate the amount which has to be added to the output tax liability for the month of August. Now looking at the pre-amendment scenario. In the pre-amendment scenario, the amount which was already credited in the electronic credit ledger in the month of April is 3 lakh, because the capital good was being used exclusively for taxable supply. We were eligible to take 100% credit, so the whole amount of 3 lakh was already credited to the electronic credit ledger in the month of April. And then in the month of August, because we have purchased this new capital good, 1,20,000 will be added. But when we do the attribution of common credit, we will deduct 15,000 from 3 lakh and then we will apportion the common credit. There wouldn't be any change in this particular thing, because now after 3 months this particular asset is being used for both taxable as well as exempt supplies. So 3 महीने का जो 15,000 है वो तो पूरा ही credit आपको मिलेगा, but after that whatever is there it has to be commonly apportioned. So 2,85,000 plus 1,20,000 of the for the month of August, and we'll get common credit per month as 6,750. 6,750 has to be attributed to exempt supplies. And how will we do that? We'll multiply it by the value of exempt supplies, that is 15 lakhs, and divided by the adjusted total turnover, that is 35 lakhs. So the amount which has to be added to the output tax liability comes to 2,893. And till what time this has to be done? This has to be done with respect to capital good Y until the month of March, and with respect to capital good Z until the month of July 2025. So please understand what happened previously. Full credit was taken, but when we were apportioning the common credit, we had to deduct the amount of depreciation and then apportion the common credit, even in a situation wherein the capital good was first used for taxable and then put to common use. Now let's look at what is the post amendment scenario, what is happening after the amendment has come. So again here there wouldn't be any change in the amount. You've already credited 3 lakh in the month of April, 1,20,000 will come in the month of August. 3 lakh plus 1,20,000 divided by 60, because यहाँ पे in the amended scenario we are not going to depreciate and take the amount, we are going to take the full credit and divide it by 60. We get the amount of 7,000. 7,000 has to be apportioned between taxable as well as exempt supplies. For that we will find out what is the ineligible amount by taking the exempt supply ka turnover, dividing it by the adjusted total turnover, which comes to 3,000, and this 3,000 has to be reversed. Now if you just look at a small difference between what happened in case of exempt supplies, shift from exempt to taxable and taxable to exempt, is in case of shift from exempt supplies, therein there was one additional amount of 15,000 also which had to be added to the output tax liability. But here there wouldn't be any such thing because you are eligible to claim that 15,000. In case of exempt supplies, you were not eligible to claim that 15,000 because for those 3 months you were not eligible to take the credit. But here there wouldn't be any reversal of 15,000, there wouldn't be any addition to the output tax liability of 15,000 because you are eligible to take the credit of that 15,000. So यहाँ पे the reversal, the addition to the output tax liability will only be of 3,000, and this will be done till the month of March 2025 for the capital good Y and till the month of July 2025 for the capital good Z. So this is the post amendment scenario. I hope you have understood what was the scenario before the amendment and what is the scenario post amendment. It is very simple. We'll just have a quick recap of whatever we have discussed. So post amendment, when we were talking about shift from exempt supplies to taxable supplies and exempt supply, in that situation, pre-amendment scenario, what we did was we deducted the amount of depreciation and then added it to the added the remaining amount to the electronic credit ledger, divided the common amount by 60, apportioned it to the exempt supplies, and this apportionment was being done till the remaining useful life of the asset. But now in the post amendment scenario, what are we doing? As soon as the shift is happening, we are taking the full credit. What are we doing? We are calculating the depreciation of 5% per quarter or part of the quarter, and we are adding that amount to the output tax liability, and we are taking the full credit amount, dividing it by 60 and apportioning it between taxable supply and exempt supply. And coming to, if there was a shift from taxable to common use, then previously तो full credit पहले भी ले रहे थे, but when apportioning we were again reducing the amount of depreciation and dividing it by 60 and then apportioning it for taxable as well as exempt supplies. But now in the post amendment scenario, there's no such thing which we are doing. We are taking the full credit, and full credit is being divided by 60, and this apportionment is done for the remaining useful life of the capital good. I hope you have understood this very, very, very important amendment, and you may make a note of the example so that it becomes clearer to you that how the amendment is impacting and how it is how it will save the government from the revenue loss which would have happened in the previous scenario. We'll look at the other amendments in the next video. Till then, keep studying and keep revising. Thank you.